Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Night Striker gear. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer M2, Night Striker gear released in October of 2025 for the PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. A sequel to Taito's 1989 arcade classic Night Striker, this title is an on-rails modern-day super-scroller. Easily one of my most anticipated shoot-em-ups of 2025, M2's done an excellent job of delivering an incredible sequel worthy of the arcade original. This is also a great follow-up to their earlier release from this year, Operation Night Strikers. So whether you're a fan of Night Strikers, on-rail shoot-em-ups, or are looking for an excellent arcade experience, Night Striker gear is an easy recommend from the chef. Finding ourselves at the main menu, before you play the game for the first time, I would recommend reading through the manual as it does an excellent job of explaining the game's mechanics. Now, under game menu, you're taken to your game modes. Initially, we'll have two modes available, normal mode and pacifist mode. Normal mode is your standard arcade experience. Pacifist mode takes away your ability to fire, so you have to survive through the stages without being able to shoot the enemies. And lastly, we have B-side mode, which you'll unlock by completing all the stages in the game. And then B-side takes all those stages and strings them together in one long run. If you've played Night Strikers before, you'll have an idea of what that means. Now, selecting your game mode will take you to your difficulty selection, and these difficulties are the same for all the modes. Starting the game, the presentation will be familiar to those that have played Night Striker before. We have our initial orders given to us, and then once the stage title comes on, we'll also see a preview of the stage's boss. Now, we pilot the armored car, the Intergrey, which has the ability to fly around the stage as well as drive on the ground. Why would we want to drive on the ground, you'd ask? Well, points are very important in a game that does have leaderboards, and driving on the ground, we get more points for surviving on the ground than we do flying around. So that could matter quite a bit if you're looking for a high score. Now let's talk a bit about our offensive options. So we do have the ability to fire a shot, which will occasionally fire homing shots. One of the things that will drive that, unlike the mechanics in the original where moving around quickly wouldn't influence your whether or not you went and fired a homing shot, we now have a gear meter at the bottom of the screen, which right above our shield, which is part of the game's new mechanics for Night Striker gear. So how does that work? So the higher our gear meter is, the faster our rate of fire will be, as well as the more homing shots that we have. How do we increase that gear meter? By defeating enemies and by collecting items on the screen, which will kind of come up in a blue. How do we deplete that gear meter? So we also have the ability, in addition to being able to fly the car like this, we can actually change into a mech. And in the mech form, as we shoot our shots, there'll actually be a very powerful version that's a homing shot, but they'll also quickly deplete the gear meter down below. So you want to be careful with that, as if you fully deplete the gear, then you're significantly, the gear meter rather, you're significantly weakened when you're back in car form. Your rate of fire will be significantly lower, and you won't have as many homing shots. So it's kind of a matter of deciding when we want to use that powerful form. You'd be tempted to use it against bosses, but I think it's actually better to remain in your standard car form and have that higher rate of fire. Now, as the game can be played through in a pacifist mode, one thing to note, each boss does have a timer, so you'll want to defeat them before the timer goes off, unless you're looking to hit it in pacifist. Now, completing the stage gives us these bonuses, and then here's one of the things that is continued from the original Night Striker, which I really love, the ability to pick branching paths at the end of each stage. We'll also get a shield extend at the end of every stage. So there aren't as many stages in this title as there were in the original, but I feel like the quality is overall a little bit higher. So I went and picked Path B, Sky 1, and one of the things that's different about this versus the Sky stages in the original is we still have a road that we can drive on if we get all the way down there. So you can still get some of those bonus points. Now let's talk a little bit about strategy. So as we are dealing with a stage that can have some tricky enemies, we do want to maybe use our gear mode a little more frequently. However, we do want to be careful, as there will be situations where you're fighting these mini bosses as well as bosses, and you don't want to be in too weakened of a state when you encounter these harder enemies. So I do like the strategy there of knowing the best times to use your powered up form versus when you want to conserve your overall energy. So now let's talk a little bit about survivability. So as you take hits, that will go and deplete our total number of shields, which start at 5, and then as I noted, you do get a shield for finishing every stage. There's also a shield dealer one in every single stage, and that shield dealer is actually presented as a duck, which you can see on screen ever so briefly here. That is definitely one area I do recommend using your gear against those end ducks, so you can make sure you get additional shields that will be really important for your survivability throughout the course of the stage. Another thing to note about the enemy waves is a lot of the enemy formations do have a red captain among them. If you shoot that red captain, you'll destroy the entire formation. Now we find ourselves fighting our second boss, and basically those are the primary mechanics for Night Striker gear. So overall, this is a shoot 'em up that I've loved a ton so far, and I can't recommend it enough. It does an excellent job of capturing that arcade feel of the original, and just having all those paths to go through, the super arcadey nature of the game itself. It's one that, for a old school shoot 'em up fan especially, it's a super easy recommend. But there are a couple minor complaints I do have about it. So one of the things that I really liked about the original game was that in the branching path, the end stages of all the paths added a new mechanic to each stage, where maybe you got a wingman, or your car was destroyed and you had to go on a motorcycle, or you transformed into a mech. Of course, now we have the ability to transform into a mech all the time now. And sadly, that's not present in this sequel. So just a minor complaint there. I would have really liked to have seen that kind of gameplay make a return. And then more of just a minor, less of a complaint, and more I would have loved to have seen more stages in the game. It would have been nice if there were more stages. But on the plus flavors, I love this title's just how awesome the game is from a presentation standpoint. It looks super clean and does an excellent job of handling that whole super scroller look, but with modern day visuals. Also, from a sound standpoint, the game has amazing sound design with a truly excellent soundtrack. And then, really, one of the things that I just can't say enough about the game is I do feel it does an incredible job of capturing that arcade feel, even down to the number of credits. So like a lot of arcade ports, we do start out with a reduced number of continues. You have 3 continues available to you initially, and then for each hour you complete, you get an additional continue. So you really have that incredible arcade feel, going on there, even with that end. And along those lines, I feel the game provides wonderful value, as you've got an awesome new sequel to a classic title at a really good price point. So there you have it. Night Striker gear served up for your enjoyment. Definitely an easy recommend from the chef. I feel like if you're a fan of arcadey shoot 'em ups, this one is an easy recommend to anybody that that description fits. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, we want to thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.